Good evening. Welcome to the David Lynch Foundation's first annual Power of Caring celebration. I'm Bob Roth. 21 years ago, our founder, David Lynch, brilliant filmmaker and a dear friend, shared a simple but profound insight.
This here represents the surface of life. Surface.
From his own decades of practicing transcendental meditation, David knew that beneath the stress and turmoil of daily life lies something extraordinary, something deep within every human being, not something we create, not something we visualize or believe in, something we simply access. And when we do that, when we access that innermost field, then stress dissolves, trauma heals, and our deepest qualities of creativity, happiness, caring, and love naturally emerge. Our own pure consciousness naturally emerges. Today, modern science is confirming what David understood intuitively. That insight is at the basis of the David Lynch Foundation. Since 2005, with the support of thousands of generous donors, we've brought evidence-based transcendental meditation programs that reduce stress, heal trauma, and improve health to more than 1.5 million people around the world. Veterans, first responders, healthcare workers, teachers, students, women and children rebuilding their lives after trauma, people simply seeking better health, greater peace, and a more hopeful future. Tonight, while we honor David Lynch and celebrate our 21st anniversary, we also celebrate something incredibly important: the publication of a remarkable new book, The Power of Caring, by Dr. Tony Nader, an MIT and Harvard-trained physician, neuroscientist, best-selling author, and head of the global TM organization. Dr. Nader's book couldn't be more timely. Throughout this evening, you'll be hearing inspiring stories about the power of caring. You'll meet extraordinary caregivers, explore cutting-edge science, and discover why caring is one of our greatest resources for healing ourselves, strengthening our communities, and creating a better world. Wherever you're joining us from, thank you for being here. Let's begin. Every meaningful conversation begins with a good question. Tonight's first question is beautifully simple. Why care? Why does caring matter so much? Joining us remotely are two people who have explored that question from different but deeply complementary perspectives. One through medicine, neuroscience, and the study of consciousness. The other, a very dear friend, through public service, journalism, and listening deeply. Together, they remind us that caring is both deeply personal and profoundly practical. Please welcome Dr. Tony Nader and Maria Schreiber. I'm going to begin with Dr. Nader. You wrote a best-selling book exploring the vast field of consciousness called Consciousness is All There Is. Now you've written The Power of Caring. Why did you write that? When did you realize that caring deserved to have a book of its own?
Maria, Bob, thank you for being here. I wrote this book because I have spent decades watching people care imperfectly, including myself. I have watched doctors burn out. I have watched parents become exhausted by love even. I have watched activists become bitter because the world did not change as fast as they cared about it changing. And I have watched people withdraw from caring altogether into indifference or cynicism because caring hurt them too much. But I have also watched across many cultures and many decades the rarer human being who has found a way to care sustainably, to give decades after decade without depleting. What sets that person apart is not how much they care, it is what they are caring from. The exhausted ones care from anxiety, from urgency, from the constant pressure to fix everything. The sustainable ones care from a settled inner ground that is being constantly replenished. That distinction, brought from practical, scientific, as well as holistic perspectives, is the heart of the book. Every wisdom tradition has recognized in its own language that outer action rests on inner ground. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi captured the whole idea in 7 words: water the root to enjoy the fruit. That is one important argument of the book, compressed into an image anyone can carry with them. The Sermon on the Mount taught it, the Stoic philosophers taught it, the Bhagavad Gita taught it on a battlefield, Aristotle taught it in Athens as eudaimonia, flourishing that comes from a settled character, not from chasing what pleases the moment. The book puts common sense, science, traditional and ancient wisdom into the language of modern life through medicine, neuroscience, and the study of consciousness. The world does not lack caring people. What it lacks is caring that lasts, caring that nourishes the person doing it instead of depleting them. That is why I wanted to write about.
Thank you, Dr. Nader. Maria Shriver, you are an award-winning journalist, best-selling author, founder of the Women's Alzheimer's Movement, and also, most importantly to me, because I appreciate the publication so much, you're the founder and editor-in-chief of Maria Shriver's Sunday paper. You've devoted much of your life to advancing mental health, supporting caregivers, veterans, women, families, and communities in need by telling their stories, advocating for them, and standing beside them. Maria, when you look back on your life, who has been the greatest model of caring in your life, and what did they teach you?
Well, I'm learning right now as we sit here. I'm learning as Dr. Nader speaks. I think listening to him, I think of all the mothers in the world who care so deeply about their children and the children of mothers they don't even know. I was thinking while he was talking about how exhausting it is for so many to care. And I so appreciate the concept of caring wisely and caring in a sustainable way so that one can continue to care, because I do believe that our world is suffering from a lack of caring. People are suffering thinking that nobody cares about them. People are suffering thinking they are not seen, that they are not loved, that they are not valuable, that somebody is not there for them. So when I think about people who have cared for me, I think about my parents, certainly. I think about my friends, my brothers, my siblings. I think about my own children who have taught me, each of them independently, how to care for them in the way that they needed to be cared for. As a boss, I think about how to care for people who work for me. As a storyteller, I think about caring about people's stories and how to tell them in a way that other people will care about the stories that I'm telling. But I think care is not a valuable commodity in our nation or in the world. I don't think people value care the same way they value success or the same way they value money. And I think that that's something that I hope will change. You said in the beginning when you were talking about it that caring is personal and practical, I think were the 2 words you used, Bob. But I think it's also a very public value. I think we see what happens when it's not valued in a public way, when it's not valued in the public square. And that's why I think it's so exciting that Dr. Nader has written this book and is asking us to care in a public, private, practical, personal, and professional way. Those are all the P's, because I think that it tells us is indicative of the kind of society we can be and we become if we value a value like care.
Beautiful. Any thoughts on what Maria just said, Dr. Nader?
That's really beautiful, and at the heart of, the thinking and why the book was written. I think in few words, she mentioned the whole context, and of course, we know that in her life, in her work, she lives what I have written about, in fact, and she's the living example of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nader. For me, learning meditation and learning how to emotionally regulate allows you to, I think, center you. Dr. Nader talked about being grounded, being at peace with oneself, and then, caring from that place is very different than caring from an excited, energized place, right? And I think that if people were able to more emotionally regulate, particularly public leaders, imagine if they were able to emotionally regulate, to ground themselves, then what would be the wellspring from that place? How could they care from that place as opposed to an agitated, anxious place? I think we would be living in a very different world.
It's beautiful. Dr. Nader, when people think of caring, I don't think they think of power with caring necessarily. Or some people have said, why are you talking about the power of caring? Could you comment on that? Answer their questions?
Well, yes, thank you, Bob. It's really a commentary almost on what Maria just said to us. In terms of power, when we hear the word power, most think of control, political power, economic power, coercive power. That is one meaning, but it's a narrow one. The older meaning of the word is closer to capacity or force or energy. The power of an engine, the power of a current, the power of an idea to change a life. And caring in that older sense is one of the most genuine powers a human being can exercise. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it beautifully. Power without love is reckless and abusive. And love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Every civilization has understood some version of this. Confucius spoke of Ren, humanness, as the foundation of good governance. The Jewish tradition speaks of tikkun olam, the repair of the world. The African concept of Ubuntu holds that I am because we are. Different words, same insight. Caring is not the alternative to power. It is the truest form of it. The title of the book, The Power of Caring, is to insist that we take caring seriously, not as a soft virtue, not as, say, kindness without tease, but as one of the most powerful forces in human life. A child who is cared for develops differently. A patient who feels cared for heals differently. A community held together by mutual caring withstands what an isolated community cannot. These are not soft effects. They are measurable, observable, and decisive. Caring done consciously and sustained over time builds people. It builds relationship. It builds institution. It builds civilization. That is power worthy of the name.
And yet, Dr. Nader, you talk about, when I was listening to you on a video, when you were talking about this book, you said the question that seems to cross across all cultures is, who cares? Who cares about me? That people feel like nobody cares about me, and who cares whether I do this, or who cares whether I do that, and nobody even notices that I'm here. I'm curious about how you feel like your book might be helpful in igniting a conversation where people actually feel, oh, wait a minute, there's an alternative to the way I feel right now. somebody does care about me. Somebody does want to make my life better. I can partner with someone. I can live in a different type of a community.
Absolutely beautiful. And really, that's where the book, which starts with who cares. And at one point, actually, I was thinking to call the book Who Cares, just to create a little bit of, a shock or something like that. And the publisher, for very good reasons, convinced me that to change it. And I thought of the power of caring so that it balances that aspect of who cares after all. And so who cares can be, spoken with a shrug, with kind of a sense of cynicism. And who cares can be a moment of tears, of questioning, does the universe care? Does anyone truly care? And so the book addresses this and shows how actually we are wired to care, and nature emphasized and supported those traits in evolution where we have mechanisms in our nervous system that actually are activated when we look at somebody who's in pain or who is going through trouble. And they are similar to those mechanisms that are activated in the person who is living that. And so these are like mirror neurons. There are different things scientifically that we see that show we are wired to care. But with stress and strain and, reflex actions and thinking we are always under threat in society, we don't allow this caring from the inner field to manifest itself. But when we settle back within ourselves, then we find caring become natural and effortless. And we know that even those who say, who cares, they actually care very deeply. And that's what I also try to show in the book, that at some level, maybe they've been hurt, maybe they don't understand what is happening, maybe there is an attachment to results that are not under their control, and maybe they are too anxious about attachment and they want things to be only in a certain way, and they don't take a step back, go back to themselves, and feel how much actually life cares, and how much there are such wonderful people like you, Maria, that actually care about everything and everyone in a sustainable way. So what's important is to go back to the self, settle down, and all of this manifests itself in a natural and effortless way.
I'm going to ask you to conclude this conversation in just a moment about what do you mean by conscious caring, because there's so many books that have been written on caring. But before that, Maria, I'd like you to comment on Dr. Nader's words just then.
Well, I'm commenting all over the place about his words in his book, his whole life philosophy. I think exactly, he's talking about offering up to all of us to rethink how we live our lives, actually. He's offering a paradigm shift. He's saying, there's power in something perhaps that you haven't thought about. There is power in living a different way. There is power in acting a different way. There is power in thinking a different way, behaving a different way. And I think that is arresting. I think that is hopeful, and that is intriguing to people, and that is counterculture. And so now we have somebody saying, we don't have to live like that. That's a different version of power and aggression. And I mean, I could go down a whole thing on that, but and then there's this other way. So we can care about these issues, but we can approach our life, I think, from a different place. And that's what I get what you're talking about. Right?
Beautiful.
Right?
Beautifully Articulated.
Absolutely.
Dr. Nader, conscious caring. What does that mean?
See, we spoke about reflex caring, or caring being wired in us, which is fabulous, and it's part of evolution. So we know that physiologically. There is another aspect of caring that is like moral obligation in a sense. And there are precepts and guidelines, how to care, when to care morally, what is good to do, when to do it. And sometimes actually the trouble is also in following blindly what we think is the right thing to do. Although guidelines and ideas, that's why we're talking about, that's why there is books and there is thinking and there is discussion about importance of caring, so that we clarify how we care. But if caring becomes an obligation only or a reflex only, then it becomes a performance when it's obligation. So it's a moral obligation. Then I do what the right person should do. But is it mine to do? Is the situation what requires me to do? Should I be carrying the other person's feelings and problems and difficulties, or should I try to help them rather than carrying the burden of their life in a sense? And sometimes we misunderstand caring as being, okay, somebody's suffering, you come and you start suffering with them. But you had one person suffering, now you have two people suffering. So what did you achieve overall? What we want is to be conscious, to go back into the inner ground, the inner space from which true caring happens, and to be able to evaluate the situation, to be able to be conscious of what is happening, not just respond to the loudest or to the first coming or to those who are, yelling or this and that, just reflexly or based on, oh, this is what I should be doing. Conscious caring is caring that comes from within. Empathy, for example, is something that is feeling. You feel something. And that is also wired within us. But if you feel and you leave it at that, it burns you out and overloads you. So you should learn that boundaries are not walls. They are just what allows you to care more from a sustainable level. And Maria mentioned self-care. Self-care, has had a bad name because people think you take care, you go on to luxury trips and spas and all that. That's fine also, we don't want to disregard that. But self-care is the ability to be the best one can be so that we can care for others. So empathy has to be supported by conscious caring. So empathy feels, we can say compassion feels and sees, it analyzes, it makes a decision. And what I would call conscious caring is feels, sees, and acts appropriately so that the outcome is the best that it can be, and it doesn't overburden the giver, nor deplete them, nor oversteps the receiver also, the receiver's freedom, the receiver's quality. Sometimes care, which is reflex and kind of only performance, becomes control or becomes anxiety about how things should happen, and if they don't happen this way, I get overwhelmed or I retreat, etc. So conscious caring is something very deep that awakens the higher parts of the brain, that allows us to act in a sustainable way.
I think it's important, Bob, that there's about 60 million Americans, for example, and there are millions more in other parts of the world that are now caring full time for a loved one, be it a special needs child, a person with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, someone who's cancer, and they are caring. Really, they're full-time caregivers, caretakers, right? And that is exhausting work. It is round-the-clock work. And I work with a lot of caregivers and try to support caregivers and see this all the time, that people are just burnt out from caring. And the conversation about how to care wisely and also inject self-care into the caregiver's journey is a much needed conversation for the millions and millions of people who find themselves caring for a loved one with no end in sight. And so how do they do this job while caring for themselves, while not losing sight of themselves, while not burning out, while not being totally depleted, is a conversation I think that the world needs to have as people age and need care. You know, there's a saying that says you will either be a caregiver or you will need a caregiver, every single one of us. So who will come to care for us? Will they come and care wisely? How will they care for us? And when we have to step up, how do we care wisely and from a place of joy? How do we sustain ourselves in that journey, which is so challenging?
It's a beautiful point you raise, and it's a perfect transition to the next section of this celebration, and that is the focus of the David Lynch Foundation. Actually, we're celebrating our 21st anniversary, has been on delivering transcendental meditation to, as you know, under-resourced populations, but we also deliver it to caregivers. And a big focus has been on caregivers, whether it's frontline healthcare workers. We have a big emphasis now on bringing it to nurses and doctors, to first responders, veterans who have been caregivers for us, to school teachers. So that focus is we need to give them a tool. We talk about it, we need to give them a tool, and we have called, in honor of Dr. Nader's book, The Power of Caring, we have launched, this is actually the first annual Power of Caring celebration. And this is going to be the theme of this year, is Power of Caring. How do we promote self-care for everyone? And every one of us is a caregiver in one way or another, everyone. And every one of us can get burned out. So transcendental meditation for self-care and transcendental meditation for all of us as caregivers. So this is a wonderful transition, because we're going to meet in the next section some men and women who are on the front lines of caregiving, and how their use of transcendental meditation empowers them to become, not just give more, but as Dr. Nader and you say, care better. So thank you both for this, for joining us for this session, and we'll move on to our next section. Thank you. Tonight we've been talking about caring, what it means, why it matters, and how it changes us. Caring is something, if we are fortunate, we witness every day, sometimes quietly without fanfare. Let's meet some remarkable people who show us what caring looks like in action. We begin with the men and women who embody caring, America's healthcare workers, in particular, the nursing profession.
You're always on. If you come in and you're not feeling 100%, doesn't matter. You still got to perform, and you still got to do what you need to do, because people's health and their well-being is in your hands.
We're taking care of sick patients, a lot of very ill patients. We want everybody to get better. Unfortunately, some of the patients are not going to get better.
You can't do everything in the moment. So, of course, by the time your day is finished, you feel burnout.
Healthcare providers are sometimes the worst at caring for ourselves. We're trained to care for others. There's burnout, there's PTSD because of the experiences with their patients. So because of that, looking for different opportunities of how to meet our wellness goals and remain healthy.
And so I learned it, and I learned that I could actually do transcendental meditation.
I just don't feel like there's a weight on me. It's lifted. The weight is lifted. The stress is lifted.
When I think of transcendental meditation, this really deep stillness, just a sense of deep, deep peace. It's like the whole world of chaos is outside the door. I don't have anxiety. Things will make me anxious from time to time, but I don't live an anxiety-filled life.
With TM, it's bringing me a more solace of, okay, I can do this. Like you can lift the world.
And the patient feels safe and calm if their caregiver is nice and calm.
I'm much more productive now. I'm not drained. I'm not wanting to leave here. My husband actually has to call me and ask me to come home sometimes.
I'd like to welcome a panel of extraordinary caregivers. You'll meet them one at a time. First, I want to begin with Dr. Yolanda Lewis-Ragland. Dr. Ragland is a board-certified pediatrician and health prevention expert. For years, she has lived in and served the Washington, D.C. neighborhoods of Wards 7 and 8, communities that experience some of the nation's highest levels of gun violence and trauma. Dr. Yolanda, you have seen TM work in this community. Tell me the response from meditation.
For communities that face trauma, it's not just gun violence, right? It's poverty, it's chronic disease. They often feel like they don't have control over their circumstances. And what I know about this community is you can't just tell people to calm down or get it together, especially when their nervous system has been operating from survival mode for so long. But what Transcendental Meditation did for this community that I worked in for years was it gave them the capacity to move from just reacting to their challenges to responding. And that's a space of real empowerment. I saw parents be a lot more patient with their children. And the teens that I work with as a pediatrician went from just sort of reacting to their environment to really focusing on solutions. And so in this community, they got to learn how to really care for themselves. When you're really often caring for others, you don't learn that on your own. And so for them, it was a moment and a space where they saw that healing doesn't just happen in the clinic or in the hospital. It actually starts on the inside of them.
Beautiful. And how has it helped you, Transcendental Meditation, in your life?
I was, single mom of 3 and balancing medicine, motherhood, leadership, and service. TM was my anchor. TM allowed me to really just sort of reset and restored it. It allowed me not to have to pour from this empty cup. It allowed me to learn how to fill up that cup, not just daily, but twice a day, which was, abundance. And so I think that we do a disservice as healthcare workers if we only focus on the outward energy of healing others and not really recognize that healing ourselves is a responsibility.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yolanda. Of course, caring isn't always quiet. Sometimes it runs towards danger. Firefighters and first responders care for others in moments of crisis. While most of us experience only a handful of traumatic events in a lifetime, first responders may face hundreds. Tragically, more firefighters die by suicide than in the line of duty.
The thing about being a firefighter is you can go from 0 to 60 at the drop of a hat. People are screaming, people are yelling, and you have to remain calm. We realized early on that you had to have some stress debriefings, and it wasn't well accepted. You know, people, I'm okay. This is what I'm supposed to do. But then I will tell you when it really, really hit home was on September 11th. We lost 343 members of our department, and we realized that there wasn't anybody in this job that wasn't hurting.
I needed help. And the hardest thing to do is to ask for help, especially as a firefighter when you're there to help other people. I struggled with alcohol for many years, especially after 9/11. I'm a survivor of 9/11. So I needed a change, I needed a reset. I didn't believe it was going to work, and it was a revelation. This transformation with TM, it's changed a lot of people's lives, it's changed my life.
To have something that can really help, it's huge.
And the thing that blew me away about it was that it works. You know, at the end of 20 minutes, you're like, wow, you feel great. Honestly, if it was up to me, we would be teaching it in the academy.
It just calms you down. When I said we went from 0 to 60, it makes that 60-30, and you're calm enough to do your job, makes you a stronger person.
What motivates someone to keep showing up day after day for complete strangers? How do you keep caring after witnessing so much suffering? Salvador Cassano is the retired commissioner of the New York City Fire Department, and he's a legend there, a Vietnam veteran, and a national chairman of TM for Firefighters. Commissioner Cassano, you responded to the September 11th attacks and helped lead the department's recovery for years afterward. You've been meditating 15, 16 years?
16 years.
16 years.
You were my teacher.
I was his teacher. I didn't know it was 16 years ago. How has it impacted your life?
Well, after September 11th, all of our lives in the fire department that were spared, our lives were upside down. You know, working 18, 20 hours a day, sleep deprivation, eating on the go, eating on the run. We all were worn down. And we needed something else. You know, you try your physical activity, you try nutrition, you try praying. There was just something missing. And TM helped me get back into myself. I was always worried about caring for our 16,000 firefighters and EMTs, family at home, and met you and decided it's time to take care of myself first before I could take care of others. It's made a tremendous difference in my life.
Why are you so committed to bringing Transcendental Meditation to firefighters all over the country, all over the world?
Well, I held every rank in the fire department, so I know what every rank went through as a firefighter, an officer, a chief of department, and commissioner. So there wasn't any rank that I didn't serve, and I knew the anxiety of each rank. There was a new probie, a new promotee, and everybody always says, I'm fine, I don't need any help, but they did need help. Especially the people that responded on September 11th. We saw things that we shouldn't have seen. So when I explained to them, this will help you to overcome that stress, they listened because they know I did it, I've been there, I've been in their shoes. Probably not too many people can say that. So an important message to get out to the firefighters, take care of yourself first, then you can take care of others.
This is a truly great human being. It's an honor to know you, and thank you for joining us here. As we look to the future, we're launching the David Lynch Foundation's Next Generation Initiative to address the growing mental health crisis among young adults. In fact, young adults ages 18 to 25 have the highest prevalence of mental illness of any age group, and suicide remains one of their leading causes of death. Let's hear from students whose lives have been transformed.
I was becoming very stressed with a lot of my academic responsibilities, my musical responsibilities. I felt like I was spinning out of control.
I was struggling a lot with social anxiety to the point where I was having panic attacks.
I was going through body dysmorphia, issues with like eating disorders.
Everyone who's here at Princeton got here because they are really motivated, and that's where that pressure comes from. I think that's a good segue into why TM I think is really important, because TM helps you deal with that.
I didn't realize until like probably 2 weeks into meditation, my mind had been clear, and I had felt happy and confident and normal. I had my life back finally, and I had my mind back and my body back. It was like an effortless return to normalcy.
I kind of joke that TM is my office hours for stress, and I'm wrapping myself up within myself. I truly see the difference in how I deal with stress, let alone everything else in my life.
Meditation has allowed me to stay calm, stay grounded. If it wasn't for meditating, I wouldn't have been able to get through school, honestly. It's one of the best things I've ever done, for sure.
Lisa Beata is a U.S. Army veteran and Director of Veterans Affairs for the City University of New York. And I should add, you oversee 3,000 veterans, and you're overseeing their health and well-being. So why is it so important to bring TM to these veterans and college students that you serve? What's unique about a veteran, what they're facing?
Our veterans have to reacclimate to civilian life. In the military, they know their mission. Everything is set. But coming back to civilian life, there's so many distractions. Economic, balancing employment, elder care, child care, studying. So this helps. This is an additional tool that supports them.
What have you seen among the veterans who practice Transcendental Meditation? What are the benefits that you've seen?
I've seen a restoration of calm, not just balance, but retention. All of our veterans that have practiced TM have graduated, have moved on to even graduate school or leadership positions. So I've seen a lot of success.
Wow. And how has it helped you? I know I heard you speak one time that you said that the meditation came at the right time because you were going through some real traumatic experience.
10 years ago, I was volunteering halfway across the world, and I received horrible news about my daughter being in an accident. And losing my daughter is beyond devastating. And trying to just move forward with everyday life was a challenge. For me, suicide ideation became an everyday consideration. It wasn't until another veteran reached out to me and said, I've experienced, I've practiced TM. Maybe you should try it. And TM came at that right time for me. I was able to sleep again, able to communicate, concentrate, really support my fellow veterans.
Well, thank you very much for your service and the integrity with which you live your life.
Thank you.
Joining Lisa is Kelly Malloy, Director of the David Lynch Foundation's Heal the Healers program, who along with Haley Hanna has brought Transcendental Meditation to over 100 hospitals in the US and 26 in New York City alone. And Kelly is also a senior certified TM teacher. So Kelly, why is it so important at this time to be bringing TM to young people and college students?
College is a time where we're preparing and planning for our future, for our career, what's next. And when our physiologies are bombarded and overwhelmed by anxiety, depression, burnout, we're not sleeping properly, we're not eating properly, we're not taking care of ourselves properly. And we get to a point where we're not preparing for our future. We don't know where to turn. And sometimes turning, again, like we've been talking about, is suicide, is ending it all. So, you know, to see this next generation thrive, we need to be arming the young adults with tools, with techniques to heal, to take care of oneself so we can thrive, so that we can be present and show up in our day-to-day lives and really just allow the best version of ourselves to just naturally be expressed just by taking that time practicing TM, which I have the great honor of waking up and getting to do every single day.
Yeah, I would say we talk about TM as great for self-care and caregivers. And I think every one of us here, we're all caregivers, and people watching, we're all caregivers somehow, whether it's with a parent or a child or a friend or relative. And so the self-care for you as a caregiver, the meditation, I think must be extraordinarily helpful. So I would like to thank you, Lisa, and Kelly, and Yolanda, Dr. Yolanda Lewis-Ragland, and Commissioner Casano, my buddy, for joining us here and I'll just conclude by saying caring has no borders. It speaks every language. Let's see how the David Lynch Foundation, together with the International TM Organization and affiliated organizations around the world, are enriching, even saving lives every day.
Quando é 8h15, bate o sinal e aí todos eles param o que estão fazendo e meditam.
A través de la meditación empezamos a ver que se están alejando de las drogas.
Hemos combatido la cuestión de las peleas, las agresiones.
पढ़ाई में भी मदद मिल रही है, जिससे आसपास में मन भटक जाता था, अब वो भी नहीं हो रहा है और अंदर के बहुत सारे रोग, बीमारियां, वो सब भी अब दूर हैं।
If we can get that change within each one of us, the change from within, we will change the school and we will in turn change the community.
Tonight, we've seen caring in hospitals, in schools, in homes, on city streets, across oceans, different people, different cultures, different professions, which brings us to another intriguing question. Is caring simply something that feels good, or does it actually change us, physiologically, emotionally, even biologically? Let's explore that question from two complementary perspectives: the health benefits of caring for ourselves, self-care, and caring for others, caregiving. I'd like to welcome back Dr. Tony Nader and invite a dear friend, Dr. Jennifer Ashton, to join us. Dr. Ashton has spent her career caring for people during life's most vulnerable moments. As America's trusted medical correspondent with ABC's Good Morning America for over a decade, she's helped millions navigate everything from pandemics to everyday health challenges with clarity and compassion. Now, through her new company, Agenda, she's helped people take charge of their well-being in new ways. Dr. Ashton, what does the science tell us about how caring benefits the caregiver?
Well, I think we're learning more and more about that today, but it really starts, I believe, thousands of years ago. When the first caregivers, which were mothers, had to nurture their young, we started to learn the importance of skin-to-skin contact, the neurophysiology behind it, the sociology behind it. And that has only grown. And in some ways, I feel like we're in the infancy of understanding about caregiving. But in other ways, as I said, it goes back probably to the beginning of time. So, at the end of the day, what we know about caregiving is that it provides benefits, physiologic benefits and psychosocial benefits and psychological benefits on both ends. So it's truly a bi-directional process, which is unusual, actually, when you think about it.
Thank you, Dr. Ashton. Dr. Nader, I do have a question for you in a moment about the research on transcendental meditation and how it helps deal with stress. But would you comment on what Dr. Ashton just spoke about? I'd love to get your perspective.
She's absolutely on track. In fact, if, you know, as from neuroscience perspective, it's as much as we know about the brain, which is evolving, but we still feel we are in infancy in understanding consciousness and awareness in its fullness, and how consciousness, which is the field on which the feeling of caring, the thoughts of caring, the ability to give, and its relationship to the body. And we know that caring has a effect on the parasympathetic system, which is the clearing, digesting, and resting system that reduces blood pressure, etc. So, you know, this is where the science actually becomes precise and, in fact, beautiful. So we know when the mind settles into what we call restful alertness, a state where the body is deeply relaxed and the mind is quietly awake, the brain does something remarkable. And this happens when we are in a caring, caretaking position.
So could you talk a little bit about what happens to the brain and the body during that transcending, during that meditative state? And then I'd like Dr. Ashton to talk about her own experience with meditation, with TM. How long have you been meditating for now, Jen? Dr. Ashton?
Oh, I think 12 years.
Yeah, Dr. Ashton been at the forefront of bringing transcendental meditation to the public with her television work, and I'm also happy to say that Dr. Ashton received the David Lynch Foundation's Woman of the Year Award last year in New York City, and it was presented by her her son and daughter. So, Dr. Nader, could you go back to that and talk a little bit about what's going on in the brain and the body in transcendental meditation that makes it different from other techniques for relaxation or meditation?
For one thing, what transcendental meditation produces is a state of what we call restful alertness. And restful alertness is where the body is deeply relaxed and the mind is quietly awake. So in this case, the brain does something actually remarkable. It is not the pattern of sleep. It is not the pattern of ordinary wakefulness. It is a fourth state, what we call. It's not sleep, it's not dream, it is not regular waking. It's a combination where we see that in EEG, for example, electroencephalographic measurements, we see synchronized alpha waves across widely separated regions of the brain, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, the area where you have the executive function. And that coherence is a marker of integrated functioning. Different parts of the brain talking to each other in a more unified way. That is also called the default mode network, which is normally a source of self-referential rumination. The worries, the mental replay, the noise, the monkey brain, which we call, and that usually quiets down. And in transcendental meditation, it actually is awakened on the basis also of a restful body, because that default mode network is where creativity is there. And that is different from other meditations where the default mode network is calmed down so that people don't ruminate and don't worry and don't etc. But unfortunately, this is the place where also creativity comes from. And that's where restful alertness is amazing, because you have alertness, you have creativity. At the same time, cortisol drops, vagal tone improves, metabolic rate decreases in a way that is deeper even sometimes than sleep in some measures. So over time, with regular practice, these acute effects become traits. They, long-term meditators show at baseline, for example, less amygdala reactivity, which is the place where there is fear and anxiety and all of that, and better emotional regulation. And at the same time, stronger executive function. So their nervous systems have a new set point. Now, this is the physiology. What makes it moving is that this state is not exotic. It is the natural state of the human nervous system, and that the human nervous system is designed to return to. That's what we call the set point, and which we have as humans largely lost the ability to reach this place under modern conditions. Deep rest is not the absence of activity. It is the presence of something that has been there all along, waiting to be accessed.
So that's beautiful, Dr. Nader. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to go back to you, Dr. Ashton. First of all, talk about your practice of TM and how it's helped you through, I know, many of the challenges you've had in your life, if you'd like to describe that. And then I want to talk to you about why this conversation about caring is so important at this time. But first, if you could talk a little bit about how meditation has helped you over all these years.
Well, Bob, first of all, I love hearing Tony, Dr. Nader talk about the science, because as scientists and healers, I could listen to that all day long. But, there's a saying that I'm sure that you both have heard, which is, doctor, heal thyself. And I think that's a really apt saying to remember when we talk about not just my experience, which I'm happy to share, but in general, caregivers needing to take care of themselves and engage in self-care. We will be no good to help anyone else if we're not first living our best health and our best wellness. And that's where self-care is not selfish. It's necessary. My brief story with TM is, and Tony, you have not heard this. Bob, of course, knows it. But I was, let's say 14 years ago. So I was in my early to mid 40s, I guess. And I was really just running on that hamster wheel constantly. And, I had 2 teenage children, and I had 2 full-time, very demanding careers. And I had a failing marriage that I knew at a very deep level was failing. It was not tumultuous or hostile, but it was just empty. And I went to a woman's event and met a woman who had been doing TM, and she was kind of the second or third person that I had encountered that had done it. And finally I said, okay, maybe I was dense and clueless and oblivious the first 2 times, but now I'm really going to get it. The world is trying to send me a message. I need to learn this. And I realized that I had put so much attention into my physical well-being, but I had avoided my mental and psychological and spiritual well-being completely. And now, as I like to say, we all need a checkup from the neck up, but all of the science that you were talking about, Tony, it starts in the brain, but it affects the entire body. So it's not even really accurate for me to say physically well, but mentally not, because it's all connected, as we know. You can't have a healthy body without a healthy mind, and vice versa, really. So I learned TM with the David Lynch Foundation, and it makes an immediate and palpable and significant positive difference for me every single time. It makes me more mentally efficient and energetic. It gives me a buffer in terms of just navigating, all of the plethora of responsibilities that I have in my life then and today. And it enables me to respond rather than react, which is a very important distinction. And when I don't do it, it's noticeable. And so I have said many, many times on television and in my books, and today in Agenda, which is a digital community I created, if I could write a prescription for TM, I would. That is how powerful I think it is. We don't have to go pick it up at a pharmacy, and we don't have to see a doctor to get a prescription for it. Although, in my opinion, medically and personally, that is how powerful it is.
Dr. Ashton, you've been talking about this prescription idea for some time, and the good news is the work of the David Lynch Foundation in partnership with the TM organization is that there's now hospitals that are paying for their doctors and nurses, and soon medical students and residents, nursing and medical residents, to practice transcendental meditation. They hear about it on hospital time, they learn it on hospital time, paid for by the hospital, and hospitals are setting aside rooms for them to meditate. And the whole focus now of the David Lynch Foundation is for that coverage, that it's embedded in the healthcare system. Why do you feel now, at the world as it is today, which is so much divisiveness and so much polarization, is the conversation about caring going to be heard? And if so, why is this so relevant at this time?
I see life through the lens of a physician. And so I think that in many ways, our world, our country, our society is in critical condition right now. And another way of saying that are the vital signs are unstable. And so when I have a patient in that condition, the premise of how I would think about taking care of that patient is to stabilize the vital signs. And in order to do that, I have to care for the patient. So if we look at what each of our ability is to help this chaotic situation, turbulent world that we're living in, it's first to care. You know, do we care that we're living in a world like this? And I think that, I hope that most people would say, yes, we do care. And so then the next question is, well, what can we do about it? And I think it always has to start from within, and then immediately it goes to the people that we come in contact with, which is very powerful. You know, even if it's one person, you're affecting one person, that might be that person for life. And that person may go on to affect 2 people, and those 2 people can go on to affect 4 people. And you can immediately see how just that first action creates a domino effect that can be transformative and can lead to stabilization of this very chaotic, unstable time. So I think that for me, it always starts and comes back to caring.
Dr. Nader, several questions for you. Why this discussion now, today? Why is it so important?
I think Dr. Ashton mentioned very important points, and it's just like, because I've thought about it, and the reason why I wrote this book is because of the importance of the conversation today. And basically is that we are living in a paradoxical moment. We are more connected than any generation in history, and at the same time lonelier. We have more information than any society has ever had, and less wisdom. We have more capacity to help one another than any culture in the past. And yet, many people feel paralyzed about how to make a difference. The US Surgeon General has called loneliness a public health emergency. Youth mental health is in crisis. Caregivers are burning out at unprecedented rates. Healthcare workers are leaving the professions they trained for. And underneath all of it is a common thread. People are caring imperfectly, and they are being harmed by their own caring. The answer historically has never been to care less. It has been to care differently, with an inner ground that can hold what caring requires. The Bhagavad Gita said it on a battlefield in a moment of paralysis. Established in yoga, perform action. First, the inner ground, then the outer work. Jesus said the same thing in the wilderness. By their fruits ye shall know them. And the fruit of a depleted person is not what any of us intend. The Stoics said it in Rome. You cannot pour from a broken vessel. The Sufi mystics said it in Persia. The wisdom is universal because the human situation is universal. This conversation matters now because we have arrived culturally at a place where we are trying to hold impossible loads on worn out inner resources. And the cost is visible everywhere. In our mental health, in our families, in our politics, in our public life. The book, The Power of Caring, is a small contribution to reversing that. It is asking a question we should have been asking all along. Not how much are we caring, but what are we caring from? If we get that right, caring flows sustainably. If we get it wrong, no amount of good intention can save us from the collapse that follows.
If people watching tonight, they had made just one change tomorrow to improve their own health, their relationships, and the lives of others, just one thing, what would you recommend?
Bob, could you ask me maybe one easy question? One thing.
All right, you can have 2 or 3.
Okay, 2 or 3 things. You know, all right, I'm going to give you 3 things, Bob. And this is really at the foundation of everything I've ever said and done as a physician, as a communicator, whether it's in my office or to millions of people on television. Medically, physiologically, and I know that Dr. Nader is going to agree with this, our bodies need 3 things every single day. Our bodies need to move, our bodies need fuel, and our bodies need rest. And those 3 things are equally important. And, you know, you could say, well, so they need fuel. Well, that's your diet. Well, what if I exercise really well, but my diet is so-so? No, they're all equally important. And the one that gets the least attention in that is rest. And I put transcendental meditation and recharging our brains and resetting our mind in the rest category. Because, as I said, the body follows the mind. If your brain is not rested and recharged, the best diet and the best exercise routine will not help. And so that's my answer. You know, we need those 3 things. We need good rest, we need good fuel, and we need good movement. And right now, if I had to give a report card to the United States on that front, it would be probably a C- across the board. So we have a lot of work to do to improve, but the good news is that can start immediately for everyone. And the rest part is why we're here. And I just want to say a big happy 21st birthday to the David Lynch Foundation, because boy, how many millions of lives have been changed and will be changed in the future. And I'm just honored to be a small part of it.
What would you say if there's one thing you wanted everyone to remember, the deeper message?
I want to give you one recommendation, and I want to say plainly why. The single most high leverage change most people can make is to take 20 minutes twice a day for a genuine practice of deep inner rest. silent, effortless, non-devotional, non-religious, simply the mind allowed to settle to its own natural state of restful alertness. Maharishi framed the reasoning for this in a single sentence. The best way to help others is to be established in one's own being. 20 minutes twice a day is how one becomes so established. It is the smallest possible, deepest possible resource that I recommend, and that is Transcendental Meditation. Because it has been researched for more than 50 years, has hundreds of published studies behind it, and works for people across every culture, religion, and belief system, including those with no belief system. It is a practice, not a philosophy. The reason this is the highest leverage change is that it simultaneously improves the three things that were named. It improves your health, measurable reductions in blood pressure, cortisol, cardiovascular risk. It improves your relationships because a regulated nervous system is capable of empathy and patience much more than an activated nervous system that it simply cannot do that. It's excited, it's chaotic. And it improves the lives of others because when you arrive to your work, your family, your community, more settled, everything you touch is affected. No other 20-minute daily investment gives that kind of return. It is not the only path. Every contemplative tradition has developed related practices, and I honor them all. But this is the one I know most about. It is the one this foundation, David Lynch Foundation, has spent 21 years making accessible to those who need it most. And it is the one I would recommend to a member of our family, my own family, without hesitation. Start tomorrow. Give it a few days, then look at your life and see what has changed. As we heard from Dr. Ashton, she described what actually happens when you learn Transcendental Meditation. You will not have to be told, you will experience it directly.
So this draws us to the close of this extraordinary celebration. 21 years ago, David launched his foundation, and in that time, over 1.5 million people have learned Transcendental Meditation, and the world has woken up increasingly to the technique that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi brought to the world. And I'd like to say, for those who don't know, that Maharishi personally selected Dr. Nader to be his successor. And what an excellent choice that was and is. So my thanks to Dr. Tony Nader, to Maria Shriver, Dr. Jennifer Ashton, and our outstanding panelists, Dr. Yolanda Lewis-Ragland, Commissioner Salvador Cassano, Lisa Beata, and Kelly Malloy for sharing your wisdom, experience, and hearts. Tonight we've been reminded that caring is more than a feeling, obviously. It's a daily choice. It's how we care for ourselves and one another, build healthier families, stronger communities, and more compassionate world. Tonight has inspired you. I hope you'll continue the conversation and the journey by reading Dr. Tony Nader's new book, The Power of Caring, which is available now on Amazon. And if you don't yet practice Transcendental Meditation, I second what Dr. Nader said. I hope you'll explore it. You can learn more at tm.org. And if you'd like to support the work of the David Lynch Foundation for the next 21 years or for next week, please visit davidlynchfoundation.org. Before we close, a final thank you to Leonard Hintz, who heads up the TM organization in the United States, along with Dr. Howard Settle. Also for everyone at the David Lynch Foundation and the US TM organization who made this possible, thank you to you, and thank all of you for joining us tonight. Together, let's keep the conversation and the caring going.
A poem of unknown origin. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free of disease. May auspiciousness be seen everywhere. May suffering belong to no one. Peace.